We have Survey of Native Nations, Casey Lozar, Salish and Kootenai, Vice President of Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, and Director of Center for Indian Country Development. John Margeau, Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, Senior Policy Analyst, Center for Indian Country Development. And here they are. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. Well, thank you, and good afternoon. Chasquilchalt, Trumnetitiwisquiliat Squest, Tennis Skolse, Sailors in Skolse, and Kulam Champkanohu. So I'm a Casey Lozar, I'm an enrolled member of the Confederate Salish and Kootenai Tribes from Flathead, and I, as mentioned, I have the honor and the privilege to be the director of the Center for Indian Country Development, which is the Federal Reserve's research and policy center that's committed to working with tribal communities on economic development. We've got a couple things that we wanted to share with you all today, a little bit of context on what the center is, and then dive into this new data product, this new data tool that we're working closely with Amber and with the ATNI on, with the ATNI tribes. Let's see how we advance this. Perfect. So with regard to just a little bit of context, so there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about what is the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is our nation's central bank. And you probably most know us by the setting of interest rates and managing the nation's economy. And that is certainly the primary thing that we do, is we conduct monetary policy to make sure that America's economy is stable. And the Federal Reserve is a really unique institution in the sense that it's decentralized. When they developed Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, they wanted to ensure that not all the power of the Federal Reserve was headquartered in Washington, D.C. And so they developed, as you can see on the map of the United States, 12 different reserve districts. And each of those districts are really charged with understanding the economies and the health of each of those regions' economies, as well as supervising banks. And John and I are based out of the Minneapolis Fed, and our work in Indian Country is really connected and anchored to the mission of the Minneapolis Fed, which is to pursue an economy that works for all of us. And we cannot meet that mission without a focus on Indian Country. And so we've been working as a bank for 45 years or so in Indian Country, doing some legal infrastructure work with tribes, some work on housing, and back in 2015, we committed to creating essentially a national research and policy institute for Indian Country. And I think maybe a good way to think about it is the center, or CICD, is like an independent think tank for tribes across the country. And as our mission at the center, we really are working, everything that we're doing is to assist with and advance economic self-determination of tribes. And we do that in a really unique way. We do it through research, and we do it through closing data gaps, all in a way that will help shape and help contribute to public policy. So the Federal Reserve is an independent institution, so we don't lobby, we don't advocate. We do research and generate data-driven evidence for tribal leaders to help tell their story about the economic barriers and the economic opportunities in Indian Country. And we've got 20 to 25 folks that are working every day at the Center for Indian Country Development. And we have grown dramatically in the past 2 to 3 years, and one of the main reasons is to help close the data gaps that exist in Indian country. I think we're all aware here that of the concept of Indian country being asterisk nation. So when you look at data sets, there's often an asterisk at the bottom of the data set that says insufficient sample size for Native Americans or American Indian Alaska Natives. And I think we also know if you don't have data, then you're not measured and it's not a priority, and we're helping to try to close those gaps. And just in the last couple of years, we developed 6 or 7 different data tools that are meant for tribal leaders, for tribal practitioners that are working with tribal economies, as well as policymakers in state houses and in Washington, D.C., to better understand Indian country through a data lens to help develop good public policy that really impacts in positive ways our relatives in Indian country. So that's a long-winded preamble to talking about this new initiative that really stems from what we've heard from tribal leaders from around the country who are wanting more data, who are wanting more opportunity to compare sort of their economic contributions and tell that story about economic contributions of tribes to a wide variety of different audiences. And we have developed something called the Survey of Native Nations. We piloted it with the tribes in Montana last year, and we just delivered the final reports to the participating tribes. And the Survey of Native Nations is anchored to a Census Bureau product called the Census of Government. And the Census of Government is a survey that's done every 5 years for every jurisdiction in the country. So think about all the small towns and cities and counties, and they collect financial information of those sovereign entities. And that is the Census of Government is used in a lot of different policy making in state houses and in Washington, D.C. It was definitely a data source for a lot of the programs that came out of the pandemic. Well, tribes have not been included, and there's probably a number of different reasons why. I mean, it's been around for 70 years, so likely just tribes were not considered when the Census of Government was pulled together, which means it leaves tribes without data to be able to compare their financials to other sovereign institutions, sovereign entities. So the Center for Indian Country Development developed this survey for tribal leaders, again, piloted in Montana, and now we are expanding. And we're bringing this service, free service, to tribes. There's a part of ATNI and a part of USET as well, United South and Eastern Tribes. And the survey collects information on tribal governments' revenues and expenditures, and allows us to compare your tribe's revenues and expenditures to jurisdictions that are important to you. So think about where your tribal headquarters are, the town that might be nearby. We can compare their data to your data. We can compare multiple counties to your data or to the state, and it's a really powerful tool to be able to have the sometimes difficult conversations with other jurisdictions, or have some of those positive conversations to help create opportunities together. The center, I guess the things that we're trying to accomplish at kind of at the highest level is to address the economic invisibility of Indian country. I think we've all experienced that, and we continue to experience that both at our local level and at state and national levels. This survey is also meant to showcase the power of partnership between multiple stakeholders that are working with confidential tribal data. We've all seen economic reports, economic studies associations, ATNI, Indian gaming associations of different states, NCI have developed around the economic contributions of tribes. This survey would allow us to have a comprehensive economic contribution analysis that will arm you with the conversations that you might want to bring to, again, state leaders or Washington, D.C. And we want to help to be able to answer that question that I think happens often, unfortunately, in Indian country of what do tribal governments even do? I think we probably all heard that at some point in time. What kind of services do they provide? The Survey of Native Nations will be able to allow for a data-driven approach to be able to tell that story of the really in-depth, comprehensive, and unique public goods or essential services that tribes bring to their tribal membership, but also bring to the broader community. Let's go back. Why is the center in a good position to be able to do the Survey of Native Nations? One of the things that is misunderstood about the Federal Reserve is that we are an independent institution. My email, John's email, ends in .org and not in .gov. So we are an independent institution, and the Federal Reserve manages an incredible amount of confidential data. We supervise and examine banks. We conduct monetary policy to set interest rates every 6 weeks. We have to have a lot of confidential data inputs to be able to do that work. And so we have the data infrastructure and the policies in place to be able to protect confidential data of all kinds. Certainly, we are committed as an institution, as a center, to make sure that we are advancing the economic priorities of Indian country. We've brought in, like I said, we have 20 to 25 folks on our team that are from Indian country, that understand Indian country, that are doing a high-level economic research and data development of data tools because we care about the outcomes of our relatives. And lastly, we are invested completely in upholding and following tribal data sovereignty. That is the filter that we use in doing all of this work, and that is the filter that we use when we think about the Survey of Native Nations. I think the number one question that we've received two typical questions from the tribes that have participated in the survey. The first is, how much does this cost? And it's free. The Federal Reserve is, while we are independent, we are still public servants, and so there's no cost of participating in the survey. The second question is, how are you going to protect our data? We recognize certainly that financial data of tribal governments is confidential, closely held data. And again, as an independent institution that is working with a lot of different data from outside of Indian country and inside of Indian country, we have that infrastructure in place to be able to protect the data. In fact, for the tribes that have participated, I'm the director of the center. I don't have access to see any of the raw data. We just have built the infrastructure so just those that do the analysis can look at that data. We will not release any confidential data. We follow your lead in understanding what you deem as closely held information, and all that data will be secured, and we'll steward the data the way you like. Where we come in is we are able to develop the reports for you all to be able to, again, tell that true and accurate economic story through data for your conversations to pursue your policy priorities. And we will do some aggregate analysis, which is in many ways kind of thinking big picture. This is where the power is of the survey, right? If we have lots of tribes that are participating, we will be able to tell a story of how tribes are contributing, but be able to get down to the nuts and bolts of where some of those barriers may exist. I'll give you one example: taxation. I know ATNI tribes have done a lot of work. I've worked hard on making sure that we're able to use our taxing authority as sovereign nations. By being able to understand how tribes are taxing and how much they're bringing in for taxes compared to other jurisdiction, and be able to say something like, 4 or 5 to 2% of tribal treasuries are made up of taxation. Can you imagine the power that would bring to those tribal leaders that are on TTAC, the Treasury Tribal Advisory Council, or the conversations that you're having or conflicts you're having around taxation just in your local areas? So there's a lot of power in having aggregate tribal data that is anonymized so that we're able to help tell the story that you're trying to tell, that you know also so well. So that's just a little bit of tee up of the Survey of Native Nations. I'm going to turn to my colleague John to talk a little bit more about the reports that tribes are receiving, the information that ATNI and AMBER will be able to receive as ATNI tribes participate, and a little bit more about the timeline.
Take your stuff. Burjujayak, John Moore Foundation Cause, Bore Wadmin Dao, Pukeganek and Demendagwas, Jigwen Dodem, Senior Policy Analyst, and Gizion. I'm a Pukegan band, Potawatomi, and I work with Casey, as we discussed earlier, and I'm going to review some of the deliverables we have for the survey. Also, I want to plug that if this is too exciting for you, we will have the opportunity to dive more in depth into these issues later today for a breakout session. We'll spend an entire hour going really in depth into the sample report and the questions and that we'll be asking, and being able to really field any questions and concerns you all may have. So you don't have to use all your excitement now. In a couple hours, you'll have the opportunity to really let loose. So with this, what Casey was talking about, we will have, after the tribe completes a survey, the center will, at no cost to the tribe, provide a comprehensive report evaluating all of the data that was collected for the tribe. And present to the tribe and provide that report to the tribe. And it will be a comparative analysis of the tribe's data, expenses, revenues, and some non-financial data that we'll be asking, like enrollment, so we can do some comparisons across tribes. And we will take that information and compare it to local jurisdictions in your area, and then against state aggregate data as well, like from Washington or Oregon. And just do a bunch of comparative analysis to see how your tribe's answers stack up to what's been collected and compared to local jurisdictions, non-Indians, and then also participants of the survey. So the more tribes that participate, the better better comparisons we can provide to tribes. So we need as many participants as we can have take the survey, which is where you all come in, to help us make this a really good project for all of Indian country. And then you'll have let's point out here at the end that you will have your ability to control the data usage, like if you want it deleted, or if you want certain restrictions on it, like that is left. We respect tribal sovereignty and leave that to the tribe's discretion to have input with regard to how their data is maintained. And here on the left is an example chart that it differs from what I have, so I don't have it memorized, but if you want to see more of those charts and review more of the survey, like I said, it's only a few short hours until our breakout session. Here's a chart that I have. So there's an example chart of we're asking for revenue streams collected by tribes, and these are non-tax revenue streams that we're asking about, like gaming fees, royalties, self-insurance revenue, sales revenues that the tribe collects. And on the right, that bar graph is a percentage of the tribes who took the survey who answered that they actually do collect that data or do collect revenues in those specific categories. So as you can see, of the tribes that took this mock data here, like few actually collected investment income, but many have proceeds from property sales. So that's an example of a chart. We will have we'll go over the entire report later this afternoon. Here's another one. And we'll go, I'm flipping through these just because we will spend a lot of time when it comes to these later on in the breakout session. So that's the benefits for the individual tribes, and as Casey mentioned, the benefits to ATNI as a whole will be we can take the aggregate data that was collected for all the tribes that participated in the survey who are members of the affiliated tribe of Northwest Indians and provide a specific, like ATNI specific report for the organization. And so when they have conversations with Congress or other partners, that they'll have a report that they can point to and say, like, well, look at our tribes. Our tribes we employ so many people, like, within the region. We are contributing this much to economic activity. We are, as a group, we are economic force within the region, and to be able to communicate that effectively to non-Indian partners is really important. So there'll be a customized slide deck for ATNI, and we will present in person with a comparative analysis of tribes within ATNI and then tribe and then non-Indian jurisdictions as well. So just really more of a high-level comparison versus a very specific individual comparison that we'll provide to participating tribes. And here's a timeline of the survey. So if you're interested in it, you can look forward to learning more about it, having your questions answered. We will set up individual meetings in this, if necessary, to present to your council, your financial staff, your people who would be participating in the survey and collecting this data. And we will, we're doing that process now, which is why we're here, to try to see if there are interested tribes who are willing to sign up for the survey. And then in the summer, we will host an onboarding event and make sure everyone has a smooth transition to actually take the survey, because we have to go through some security protocols, because as Casey mentioned, the Fed has really tight security, data security protocols, and those take a little bit of time to get set up for people. And so we'll walk through participants over the summer, and we'll launch the survey in August. And we'll provide technical assistance. There'll be a team of people ready to answer questions for any tribe that participates, so you're not doing this on your own. We'll be here to answer questions. And in the fall, we'll close the survey, prepare the analysis, and between the fall and the winter, we'll give those reports back. So by the end of this year, if things go smoothly, each participating tribe in ATNI will have a report in hand that they can plan and use for their advocacy in 2025. Here are the next steps. As we've discussed, it's we're really trying to partner with tribes on a more on a tribal specific basis, ensure that we respect tribal data sovereignty. And this has never really been done, so we're definitely creating a framework for, I think, how agencies should engage with tribes and handle tribal data. And hopefully in the future, when other tribes or when other agencies are looking to engage with tribes in a similar fashion, they can look to this as like, well, the Center for Indian Country Development did a similar project and it worked really well, and they created a framework that a lot of tribes felt that they had their input was respected, and they were able to have their data sovereignty respected. So that's also one of the goals. And right now we're in the process of obtaining contact information for tribes, working with partner organizations, ATNI, USIT, as Casey mentioned, and we'll be supporting tribal participants as they fill out and complete the survey, which we will walk through the survey in its entirety at our breakout session if you want to come and do that. So here's the pictures of the team that would be assisting any participating tribe through this process, and all but one are members of tribal nations. So we have a really centered, native-centered department, and we all understand what it means to be part of a tribal community and the importance of respecting tribal sovereignty. And we'd be here to answer questions and talk with you. So if you reach out to us and say you're interested, you'll get to see these lovely people again on screen and ask more questions and present to your tribal councils. So that's the gist. And like I said, I will say it again, if you want to learn more, we'll be having a very thorough breakout session in a couple hours, and would love to see everyone that's here in that breakout session. That's the goal. So we're moving pretty quickly. That's it. I don't know if it's traditional if we spend a couple minutes taking initial questions, or we just wait to do that until. Yeah. We have like 10 minutes. Questions for anyone in the audience. If you're burning to ask them and cannot wait till the breakout session, I know you might. Somebody out there has to have a question.
I have one. Yes. This is really hard. A hard task you have ahead of you, as you probably are aware. I'm vice president of the Washington Game Association. We're trying to get some of this information out of our membership, and it's been hard to get out of the members of our organization, and it's to do an economic development, economic impact study that's in our best interest to do. But it's just hard, for number one, to get the data internally, and then also get people to share it and trust to share it. I believe in providing data for the good of Indian country and good of our respective governments and enterprises. So I just know it's a tall task, but incentives I think are important. You've talked a little bit about how it will be helpful for future funding potentially and investment and collaboration, which is good. Prizes are always good. I'm just kidding, A big screen TV, right, Teresa? The big screen TVs are really popular. I know at Tulalip, they use that as an incentive to get people to fill out surveys and things. But I'm just, thinking about incentives, because people have to take time out of their day to go out and round this data up. But it's not always easy, because we've got a chartered enterprise that runs all of our enterprise issues, and then we've got on the government side, it might be a little easier to gather that data, but on the enterprise side, it can be really a challenge. So probably just stating the obvious, but I know you guys have got some expertise, and maybe there's some thoughts you might have on how we can sell this internally, because it takes a sell job on our part as tribal leaders to talk people into gathering that data. It's like they're not looking for more work. They're pretty busy as it is. So just a few thoughts I had.
Yeah, we're, Well, thank you for your question, or your statements. So we recognize, and we're trying to address those issues in a few ways. On the trust component, we're here, we're out, to try to, see, we're not, in some remote location, we're here, this is us, you can see our faces, these are the people you're talking to. We will have a breakout session to go over all these questions in more depth, trying to be as transparent as possible. And as far as the incentives, we understand this is a lot. The questionnaire was designed to be more simplified and tailored to tribes, but still keep that essential ability to have the comparisons to outside jurisdictions. So a lot of effort went into trying to simplify the questions and make it and reduce administrative burden as possible on tribes. And that's why we're also providing the reports. We're going to do the reports, so it's not an additional burden on the tribes. So just if you complete this, we can say you have this report. And so that's one of the incentives. And I mean, we're open to other ways on which tribes might be able to do this. And Casey is our director, so he's going to give his thoughts. There you go, Casey.
Oh, good. Sheriff Forsman, I think your comments are the right comments in the sense that this is a big project. This is a difficult project. In fact, before we started the pilot Montana, I had darker hair, and now it turned gray. I did want to underscore one thing that John just mentioned, that this is a learning opportunity for Indian Country. This is a learning opportunity for the Center for Indian Country Development. I think we're walking into it that way. And based on what the pilot with our tribes in Montana, we've cut the survey down by probably about a half, but still allowed us to be able to do the comparisons that I know the tribal leaders have underscored with us are really, really important. And we've worked with we've worked with a couple native accounting firms, one in particular who's constantly working with tribal financial data, and they've helped us to sort of reorganize the questions and the terminology that we use, so that is it's not startling when you take a look at it. You're not like scratching your head of like, what does this question mean? What does this question mean for how we manage our finances within the tribe? So that should make things slightly easier. And I think in terms of the incentives, like, we're the Federal Reserve, so we cannot provide big screen TVs or iPads or free airline tickets or those types of things. I think where we're really leaning in is the feedback that we've received from the tribes that participated, right? The feedback is pretty powerful. I mean, they have, a 20-some page report of analysis of their data compared to others that is done by the Federal Reserve, which is a respected and independent institution. It's not done by an academic institution or a consulting firm. Not that those are bad by any means, but we don't have motivation to shape. We don't have bias. We're really here to provide the most unbiased analysis that will be helpful for you in the kind of conversations that you want to have with the stakeholders that are important to you. So working on a lot of the simplicity and just want to just really be honest and acknowledge the fact that this has never been done before. And we think we have a really good product that is focused on the lived experiences of Indian Country and that are really going to generate the benefits that tribal participants really feel is worth the wait. So we certainly appreciate. We already have some ATNI tribes that are on board, and which is exciting. And we look to hopefully have 100% participation, which would be amazing.
I have more of a comment than a question. This is a project that I'm really, really excited about. And in Casey referenced in his remarks, this can be a really powerful tool for ATNI as a whole, but the key to that is that we have to have a critical mass of participation. So if we have too few tribes participating, then we're not going to have enough data to be able to aggregate it and show the trends that are happening within our region. So I think that's another push to really encouraging our member tribes to go through this process, even if it might be a little bit longer. But I think that the way that the CICD has designed their survey has been really thoughtful and does keep in mind the capacity of tribal leaders. So I would love to see us have this really strong data set that can really help us in all areas around ATNI.
Jimmy Wedge. We have time, I guess, for at least one more question, if anyone has it. If you're burning, if you have to ask it now, if you can't wait. That's right. Yeah. We expect at that moment we'll have an entire hour that. Lining up over there right now. Yeah, I understand. I was like, why isn't there anybody over there? I'm like, they must already be in room for ready to go. I'm about it. I like the enthusiasm.
All right, good job.
Okay, Chimwich.
Here you go, gentlemen.
Gifts. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll shake your hand. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Thank you both for that information. And everyone knows where